For this week's podcast, I wanted to film in black and white for a reason, other than I really, really like black and white photography and cinematography. But I think a lot of times when we're looking at things we believe, things we believe about the way in which we should interact with others, and the way we should respond to others, I think a lot of times we look at that in black and white without the shades of gray or without all the color that adds layer and adds more variables and things that we need to consider. And while there's lots of ways I could go with this black and white theme, and I've talked about that before with my own struggle to not try to force everything into a black and white world, because we don't live in a black and white world, and we don't always live in binary where it's this or that. you know Something as simple as we don't have just day and night, we also have dusk and dawn. So there are some things that lie between the strict binary. um, what I really wanted to talk with you about here a little bit is not really that same classic binary classification where it's all this or that, but maybe kind of we could think about that in that way. um I don't know if it's because I'm continuing to age, and as I age I have some different thoughts and idea about how I exist in my world, but also how I exist among my groups of friends and the people that I volunteer in ministry with, and the people that I worship with, and the people with whom I choose to associate with religious organizations or even non-religious organizations, people that I interact with. And in my younger days, and perhaps because I was still struggling with truly accepting myself and my own right to the gifts that God freely offers to all of us, and including me, that I found myself I found myself a lot of the time on the defensive, where I was always having to defend myself to those that would challenge me or attack me, or those that would just flat out be rude to me. Um, I have found, now that I've been retired for 9 years, um, I don't always feel the need to defend myself. Um, Sometimes I find that people want to tell me what I'm supposed to do. And just because I'm volunteering in ministry does not mean that makes um, some people my boss because I am participating in ministry. Um, no human is my boss, and no human has the right to tell me what it is that I'm supposed to do, and no human has the right to come at me and tell me you need to do da 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 da, because my first thought is you need to shut up and go away. That's my first thought. Um, in my younger days, when people try to tell me what to do, I would um, listen to them, and then I would talk with them, and then I would explain my reasoning. And what I found more often than not, people that wanted to tell me what to do just had this need to exert themselves as the great big grand poobah in charge of everything. And what they really were trying to do is they just really wanted to feel good about themselves, or make sure that I knew that they were the boss. That really doesn't work with me. And now that I am retired and all of the work that I do is of a volunteer basis, that really doesn't work. Uh, used to be, I would try to explain, which they had no real interest in listening to an explanation because their mind was made up. So then in my interactions with people, when people, I kind of matched what people brought. If people brought kindness and grace, I responded with kindness and grace. If they presented themselves in arrogance and rudeness, that's what they got back for me, was arrogance and rudeness. Uh, I find myself in a very different place now. Um, if someone has something to say, I I don't usually respond. And we live in a world now where most of the rudeness and arrogance from others who need to make sure you know that they are asserting themselves above you, most of that now comes through emails and texts and responses to posts or advertisements or examples of your work that is demonstrated in social media. And I decided that I don't have to say anything to that. I recently had someone come to me and say, when you blank, 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 that was just a little rude and harsh, and you really need to do that in a different way. And my first thought was, oh, go suck a lemon. I mean, you don't know the whole story. You don't know the things that happened before that. And you don't know why I found it necessary to be extra firm and aggressive with someone. You really don't know that. And so my first thought was, I really need to explain that to them. And then I thought, why? Why? Their number one job should have been to seek first to understand. If they didn't like something I did, then they should have had a conversation with me and they should have asked some questions. They didn't. They became correctional and directionary to me without knowing the whole story. So basically, they were rude and ignorant. And I really don't have to deal with people like that. And I'm not going to deal with people like that. So I'm at a phase of my life where I don't have to defend myself. If someone disagrees with me or they are challenging my faith, if they're challenging me as a human, my right to exist on this planet just as I am, I don't have to engage in those conversations. I don't have to justify myself. In a world where it's either this way or this way, I know it's not this or that. I know that there's a whole spectrum in there. And the people that believe it's all this or this, and they find me over here, and they're not happy about that because I don't fit what they think the world or their worldview should be. And I know I'm coming off right now as a little arrogant, rude, and mean, but I'm really not. There is a great amount of peace that comes with not having the need to explain yourself or to defend yourself or to prove that I'm okay. I don't need someone else's approval to be me. And I'm saying someone else. I'm talking about a human being. I don't need another human's valuation of me in order for me to know that I have worth and that I have value and that I have something to offer. So this is kind of a weird thing, filming this in black and white, but my challenge to you is to know and understand that you don't have to defend yourself. You don't have to argue with people that just want to argue with you. My dad used to tell my brother and I, when we were growing up and arguing with each other, he would say, if you argue with an idiot, that makes you an idiot. And what he was trying to teach us, unsuccessfully, by the way, what he was trying to teach us was that when you're in an argument with someone who's so opposite from you, nobody wins those arguments. And in fact, you both lose because you both come out looking foolish. And that's what happens when we argue in, especially in an organization that supposedly is working for the same goals. Nobody wins when you argue. So um, I had an opportunity actually this last week where someone was instructional to me, and I didn't respond. It was through electronic communication. I did not respond. I decided they didn't know the whole story, so therefore they did not know what they were talking about. So they had no ground on which to stand to even offer me their words of lack of wisdom, because that's what they were. When I first started was along this line of thought. It really wasn't so heavy into this, not feeling the need to um, explain or defend ourselves. And I really was thinking about something that I wrote about last year when the Methodist Church removed the words incompatible from their book of discipline, because what they used to say is that uh, homosexual people were incompatible with their teachings of Jesus, which actually, if you're looking at the actual teachings of Jesus, then that actually was a false statement. And so, in their discernment and wisdom, they decided it shouldn't be worded that way. And so, what happened was a lot of uh, United Methodist churches, specifically in the South, voted to disaffiliate from the United Methodist Church and join a new denomination called the Global Methodist Church. They also did some other things where they found it necessary to actually say lies about the Methodist Church in order to get their people to abandon the denomination and join this new one they've created. Now, I did have opportunity to attend groups of United Methodist congregations and churches where they came out supportive of removing this word incompatible. But what I found was some people, in their opportunity to be supportive of removing the word incompatible, the things they then said to let people that didn't believe gay people had the right to be Christians, or the right to be married, or the rights to be ministers, while they were telling them it's okay that we take out the word incompatible because it's okay if you disagree. So, what I found in some situations, a preacher would be talking about removing the word incompatible, but while they were doing that, they were basically saying I was incompatible, and it's okay if they disagreed with my being and existing. And it's okay. It was like, it's okay if we disagree on that. And it's okay if you don't want the gays really here, but you can still be part of this church, and we'll accept you and love you even if you still don't want them. So I was kind of being told I was incompatible, but we're going to do it more sophisticated now and not use the word incompatible. And I found myself wanting to defend myself, but I refrained. Because I know this isn't always the right way to think, but I did recognize that some positive movement was taking place. And while we still have to recognize when injustice is occurring, we do have to recognize progress and move in that progress and continue to push and move into more progress. And so that's another where I'm looking at that, it's not all this way or this way. It's not all black and white. There are shades of gray, and really living in our very colorful world with all of the diversity that exists, there's far, far much more for us to embrace, love, accept, and include. But you don't have to get into arguments where nobody wins. You don't always have to defend yourself. In fact, I find myself in a place now where I will challenge thought and I will challenge ideas, but I won't defend myself to someone who really does not want to have a conversation. Okay, so this is my unique topic. It's a little different. I still don't know how I'm going to title this. I'll have to work on that here in just a bit. But you don't always have to defend yourself just because someone has something to say about you. And it is a great freedom when you release yourself from having to engage in these conversations where no one's going to win. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and check out my beginning of the week podcasts that are always topical.